Call the Willmar City Council meeting of Monday, April 18th to order. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Christensen.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Amon. Nelson.
Here.
Meskey.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
Right here.
Mr. Fagerly? Councilmember Fagerly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one about good food access fund. I can talk about it now, or I can talk about it later.
Go ahead and talk about it now.
Okay, it's a community gathering to discuss food access solutions. It's going to be Thursday, April 21st at the Willmar Food Hub at 313 4th Street, Southwest Willmar. There'll be hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans live in areas with insufficient access to reliable source of nutritious food, including many residents of southwestern Minnesota. The good news is there is no shortage of interest in identifying and supporting local solutions. So if you want to find out more information on it, go on Thursday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at the Willmar Food Hub. And you can RSVP by tomorrow to Leah Schuler, and she's in Renville County, and you can call that number 320-523-3784. And refreshments and material will be provided then.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
I have a comment I'd like to make at the end of the meeting.
Any other additions or deletions? Seeing and hearing none, there are consent items. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent items. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Hearings. First we have, I believe we have Mr. Peterson going to present on an annexation petition from William and Carol Carnes. Bruce?
Mayor Calvin, members of the council, a while back, the city received a petition for annexation from William and Carol Carnes. The property is on 19th Avenue Southwest on the south side. It's the property that's cross-hatched on that drawing there. The current city boundary is the east property line of this lot. The property totals .96 acres and meets all zoning requirements for the construction of a new residence. The Planning Commission has approved the annexation, and Willmar Township has waived the 90-day review period. The financial considerations for this particular annexation by statute is to reimburse the township for 1 year of taxes in the amount of $35.35. The legal description is attached to your council action request, and I won't go into that detail right now. It's a recommendation of staff that the ordinance be adopted, assigned a number, and published.
Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close and bring it to the council table. Council, what's your wishes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the annexation petition. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meskey. Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The ordinance passes. Next on the agenda is the amendments to the Charter Commission. Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have before you 4 separate amendments to the charter proposed by the Charter Commission. Regarding the time frame here, after the hearing, we, by state statute, have 30 days to act on these, and it's staff's recommendation that you pass a motion after the hearing to continue the hearing to May 16th. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll take one at a time. The first one is an ordinance amending Charter Section 2.03, which is the general powers and duties of the council. The Charter Commission is recommending to add a new subdivision 2, where they have a structure set up to compel future city councils to develop a vision, mission statement, and strategic plan. After careful consideration that it was optional at this point, the Charter Commission was convinced it would be best to place it in the charter. And it is best drawn under Section 2, the general powers and duties of the council.
Okay, Mr. Welch, do you wish to speak to this issue? Anybody from the public that wishes to speak to the issue? With that, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing until May 16th. Council, what do you wish to do?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to continue the hearing until May 16th. Next item? Oh,
You can talk.
okay, we can
and the
talk about
motion has
it?
to-
Okay.
Yes?
So which way am I going here?
That's fine.
Councilmember Anderson?
On May 16th, it's going to require 8 people to be here, or all, the full council.
Correct.
I will not be here.
Okay, I think that at that point, we continue the hearing till that point.
That's fine.
If we then call it at that time, then that will give us an additional 30 days.
Okay.
So it'll give us additional 2 council meetings.
Correct.
Mr. Maskey?
Nope.
Okay, second. Mr. Halliday?
We should call the question, Mr.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Mr. Halliday?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the second ordinance is an ordinance amending Charter Section 7.05 on recall. It strikes out the current language whereby the Charter Commission desires to not address the issue of any reimbursement for legal services, supplies, printing, and notarial fees, but simply make it clear on 2 points of that section that no city funds are to be expended for the actions of a citizen recall committee, nor can any of the recall committee members accept any remuneration for services performed on such committee. By striking out the words that are listed in the section that you have before you, it just simply is going to leave it to the discretion of that citizen committee to what they can pay for, as long as they don't receive money for their services.
Any comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, council, what is your wishes? I would recommend continuing the hearing until May 16th. Councilmember Johnson.
I still don't understand the commission's desire to make this change. We've looked at it once before in a little bit of different format. I guess what concerns me is I believe that some of the language being stricken, obviously comments about or makes reference to legal services. And the most recent experience with this provision and the recall that the city went through, I question, I don't know what kind of legal advice they received, but obviously I guess I would not favor changing the provision to remove what I consider to be a strong hint that whoever's conducting a recall gets a legal opinion about what they're doing. I think this was a very damaging process that the city went through, and I don't believe it was handled responsibly. The petition was insufficient on its face from the get-go. And here we're going to take out a provision that I think obviously gives anybody contemplating taking such action that they should have some legal services. So I question the wisdom of doing that.
Okay, is there a motion or a second to bring this to discussion, please?
So moved.
To bring it to discussion, meaning?
Well,
get it.
generally, we have a motion and a second before we discuss it. Councilmember Johnson entered right into the discussion phase. We're going to continue discussing it. I'd like to have a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion.
Oh, to continue, sir?
To continue the motion to May 16th. Right. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In other words, we can't discuss anything tonight?
No, we can discuss it. That was said on the first motion that we're free to discuss whatever we choose to.
Okay.
Generally, we like to see a motion and a second before we discuss things.
But this is a hearing.
Correct.
I don't know, maybe point of order, do we need a motion before we can discuss at a hearing? Usually at a hearing you discuss and then you say, well, then let's do this, and then make a motion. And that's my understanding, I guess, but Mr. Scott may have it.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, typically you would have a public hearing, you would have members of the public speak. No one wished to speak today. The recommendation was that the council pass a motion to continue the hearing rather than close the hearing, because that would extend the time period by which the council could actually vote on the ordinance being proposed. So I think this is fine procedurally to do this the way you're doing it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Maskey.
I was actually the chair of the Charter Commission when this first discussion came up, and I can maybe shed some light on it since we don't have a person presenting this particular piece. But some of the members of the Charter Commission at the time when I was sitting there thought that the entitled to reimbursement would somehow put the city on the line to reimburse some of those costs if it was successful. I see when you read it here, the interpretation can go a couple ways, and so because there could be a misinterpretation of it, I think at best the language should probably be cleaned up. But I hear your concern. I think it's very valid, but I know at the point that we talked about it, it was more of a discussion of we didn't want the city to have to be any way, shape, or form liable for any kind of expenses that would have been paid for legal services by a recall unit.
Mr. Welch. Could you state your name and address, please?
Kelly Welch, 1304 23rd Street Southeast, Willmar.
Go ahead, sir.
Members of the council, mayor. The word "but" in this language turns the situation around. For example, it says, "None of the members of such a committee shall accept any remuneration for the services performed on such committee." And then it says, "But the committee and its members shall be entitled to be reimbursed for and to expend a reasonable amount for legal services, supplies, printing, and notarial fees." And the chamber said, the Charter Committee felt that with that word "but" in there, it allows an opening for people to push for reimbursement for services such as those listed. And I appreciate Councilman Johnson's concern about legal advice. He was at the meeting, and he expressed that these people should have good legal advice when they went into that situation. I don't think the council can tell them they have to have legal advice. They should know better, I would imagine. But the reason that is there, is taken out of there, is simply because it casts an absolute certainty that that the city is not legally bound to reimburse anyone for anything in a recall situation. No money, period. And it reads that way. The next sentence is, "City shall not be liable for the payment of any expenditures for or on behalf of the committee." No money coming from the city. If they want to recall, they do it on their own. Pure and simple. But if you have that word "but" in there, it says, "But the committee and its members shall be entitled to be reimbursed." We wanted that out of there. No question about it. That's the reason. Okay?
Additional discussion. You know, this is an issue that also strikes me in the middle of the issue as well. We have a resident of our community who has had a sign in front of his house, recall Mayor Kelvin. He's been on our local access with recall Mayor Kelvin. There have been other people that have done the same thing, so maybe it should be even stronger that you can't do this type of thing without following the recall process. Now, the legal advice I've received from the city attorney is there's freedom of speech. People can say whatever they want. But, the recall provisions of our city and the charter clearly state how long that is, and it can't be ongoing, as this has been going on for months. So I find it very confusing, the whole recall thing. And, some people, they're adding value to our community by doing that, by some people sitting at this table. And, I've been accused of being involved in it, but I never was. But, anyways, we have a motion and a second to continue the hearing until May 16th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we have the amending charter
Excuse me,
section.
Mayor. I want the record to reflect that I'm opposed.
Oh, I'm
You didn't
sorry.
ask for any opposition.
Opposed?
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
2 opposed. Amending charter section 211. Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this ordinance amends Charter Section 211 procedure, whereby it strikes through the current language detailing the known versions today of the parliamentary rules and defaulting to the word established set of parliamentary rules. The Charter Commission believes this will properly position the city for the ever-changing rules and names in the future. If you see the document behind you, we are striking out Robert's Rules of Order, Mason's Manual, Thomas Jefferson's A Manual of Parliamentary Practice, Alice Sturgis Rules of Order, and Minnesota Mayor's Association Rules of Order for City Councils. They will all be stricken, and we add the word established.
Is there any members of the public that wishes to speak to this question? Seeing and hearing none, council, what is your wishes?
I move that it go till May 16th, whatever.
Continue till May 16th? Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering why they're being taken out, because they're examples of what we could use and should use. Does it mean that we could just make our own?
Mr. Halliday?
As you can see on the listed components of, one of them was Alice Sturgis Rules of Order. The name is removed in the 4th edition for the Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. Other names may be amended. New versions may come out. And it was the Charter Commission's conversation that if we just used in established, that the council would have to take one of the many established and printed versions, but it would not allow them to make up their own rules.
But this is a list of established ones that we can choose from
Today.
to date. And why would we want to cross them all off? I mean, because of the chance that there may be another one come forward that we might be better, or?
Well, further clarity is you are not following any of those. Because today, the Alice Sturgis one has been totally amended in its 4th edition.
But it doesn't say any addition under Alice Sturgis on here. It just says Alice Sturgis. So I'm assuming you could use any edition of it.
Well, it leads to confusion because the name is long gone from the author. She was the author of the original version.
I still don't understand. We're going to leave it blank, in other words, the way it's written up here. Just strike through that, and it says the Charter Commission believes this will properly position the city for ever-changing rules and names in the future.
Mr. Maskey, followed by Councilmember Johnson.
Again, I'll say when we dealt with this has been around for a while as well. We had passed the latest set where we put this in, and the council agreed to put those in, and literally no more than we got to print, and Alice Sturgis' Rules of Order failed to exist, which is the set that was adopted by the city council, and it's not even called anything close to that anymore. And so it's now called the Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. It's not called Alice Sturgis' Rules of Order. And so, yeah, exactly. It's not called Alice Sturgis' Rules of Order. So they said you can't really have a name that didn't exist. And the original discussion was to actually replace that name with the existing name. And then people were saying, well, we're going to be changing the names all the time. And when you have to change a name and go through a charter amendment process, that seems to be very labor intensive. And if you could just find an overarching term, that'd be fine. But if you wanted to change one and change it to the one that we're using, I think that would probably be something that would be acceptable. But I remember that was the conversation. I don't know how it's changed.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a real problem with it, but I mean, as I read the original language of the charter, the use of the English term i.e. means, for example. It doesn't mean has to be one of the following. It just gives them as examples. So I've taken it out, of course, I guess removes any confusion, but it doesn't really change the ability of this body to make choices. So I guess I don't have any concerns about it, but I would have, from just interpretation, an English interpretation, I don't think there's any confusion about it. It's i.e. means for example.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Next, we have amending Charter Section 9.04, Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the last ordinance amends Charter Section 9.04, the oath of office, whereby we add detail to the current oath, which is administered to elected and appointed officials and the board and commission members. The Charter Commission believes that clarity of the individual office is necessary and beneficial to the city. And therefore, you can see in the words printed in the ordinance that we're underlining or adding to, after the words, the duties of the office, you then put in of, and then you'd fill it in. Of mayor, of council member, of planning commission chair, those type of things, and adds clarity to the oath. And it is Charter Commission's recommendation that that become adopted and amended.
Okay, members of the public, anybody wish to speak to the question? Seeing and hearing none, bring it to the council table. I would recommend a continuation of the hearing to May 16th. Council, what do you wish to do?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to continue the hearing. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
Just a point of clarification, would you just walk through when we do get everyone here to be able to do this? What will the process actually be? We go through the same thing again tonight, or what will the discussion, I mean, what's the process after we get the hearing done?
Well, my understanding is the public piece is still open, correct?
Correct.
So we
What I
could
would
take-
recommend for each of these ordinances, when you have the continued hearing on May 16th, that you would again open it up for public comment if anyone wishes to speak to the issue. Once everyone has spoken, or if no one wants to speak, you would close the hearing at that point. That would trigger the council's obligation to act on each ordinance within 1 month of that hearing date.
Within the 30 days.
Yeah, 1 month, I think, is the language.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. City Council open forum, we have Bob Score. Hold on a minute, Bob, we're going to wait till Kevin's ready with his timer there.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. Ready? Name and address, please.
Bob Score, 617 Southwest 14th Street. Mayor and Council. First of all, I'm going to, being Mr. Kelvin brought up that sign that he says that says recall Mayor Kelvin on it. He didn't say what it says on the top of the sign. On the top of the sign, it says, protect our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech. That's exactly what that sign stands for, because it is my sign, and it is my freedom of speech. Till things change, the sign will stay. So I'm going to move on. First of all, I'd like to address the downtown flower issue. Like I've stated before, I'd rather see the city plant the flowers and the business owners take care of them. I feel that there's been a monopoly by certain people to get this job pretty much every year. I also feel that if the issue stays as it is, the citizens of Willmar should have an even chance to bid on this job. This job last year paid $9,000 for about 3 months, and it's pretty good, extra easy money. $1,500 more than our councils make in a year, council members make in a year. Maybe we should put up some American flags on the poles instead, so being we are an all-America city. It will take more than flowers to beautify the downtown area. Have you noticed a lot of the window treatments down there? Storefronts covered up, dirty windows, smeared windows, etc. Second, I feel no need for a local option sales tax. For most of the projects mentioned on that last Monday's workshop meeting, when does the spending stop? The field house got voted down saying people didn't want it, so stop the end-around move and drop it. Do you really think that most of the citizens of Willmar can absorb the spending practices? I have seniors calling me and saying they might lose their home and don't know how they should spend the little money they have left. Do you ever think of the people out there that are not as fortunate as some of you? Stop spending and drop the local option sales tax. Use some of the $50 million we have in the bank. I don't know why that money's so special that it can't be used. Thanks for my 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Public Works, Public Safety, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did meet on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 4:45. I called the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda was public comment. And we had 3 staff members from the Divine Home Care come to our committee requesting to temporarily remove the 2-hour parking on 2nd Street Southwest between Becker Avenue and Litchfield Avenue. They previously used Heritage Bank's parking lot and were told they cannot park there during the bank's construction, and their facility is not big enough to allow adequate parking, private parking for their staff. Public Works Director Christensen stated the company should look into leasing spaces from other neighboring lots before the city would consider proceeding with other options. And that was for information only. Item number 3 was our biweekly police update. This is from information only also. Police Chief Felt noted the jail census for that day was 122. Of that, 43 were from the Department of Corrections, 71 from Candy-Ojai County, 4 Swift County, 1 Pine County, 1 Redwood County, and 2 inmates from Stevens County. He stated the calls for service for the previous 2 weeks totaled 768, and that is 10 days ahead of last year, the same date. Majority of his calls were for traffic stops, public assists, and abandoned vehicles. Chief of Police also noted that the department will be starting a Coffee with the Cops on April 21st from 7:30 to 9 a.m. at Cornerstone Coffee. The event, tentatively scheduled for every month, or every other month, I should say, at various Willmar coffee shops, invites public and citizens to sit down with several police officers to ask questions or discuss topics of their concern. The committee discussed the fire department. They will be doing a controlled burn on Saturday. Last Saturday, it was too windy, so they did it yesterday, Sunday, and I guess it was very effective for the departments involved. Again, that was for information only. Item number 4, information only also. This is our Public Works Director's update. Sean brought forth to us information on department purchases and activities. Wastewater is proceeding with the purchase of a Polaris Ranger in the amount of $13,550 and a NUHN Honey Wagon in the amount of $59,335. Pavement marking quotes were received, and traffic marking services of Maple Lake was awarded the project in the amount of $13,318. Bids were also received for the Public Works Garage roof replacement, with West Central Roofing Contractors being the apparent low bidder, and that amount was $86,642.86. With the request for bid award and authorization of signatures to be brought forth at a later date. The committee discussed the clarification of our purchasing policy details and the threshold allowing staff to proceed with purchases without council approval. Spring road restrictions were lifted on Friday, April 15th, 12:01 a.m. A large water main break took place just off the corner of 19th Avenue and 22nd Street Southwest, affecting about 150 feet of pavement. It actually lifted from the pressure of the water. Our committee also discussed the effectiveness of the removal of the parking space in front of the entrance to the library on the east side of 5th Street Southwest, and we all concluded it was worth doing, as you have a better sight line for people crossing going to the library from the parking lot. Item number 5 is a resolution. It has to do with the ground cover for our parks. Once again, staff brought to us for approval and the reappropriation of unused funds from the purchase of a skid loader in 2014 so they could purchase the flex fiber ground cover for our 7 new playground units being installed at 6 parks. After some discussion, a motion was made and seconded for the following, seconded, made, and passed for the following, and I will introduce the motion to reappropriate $18,655 from our CIP funds from 2014 so they can purchase, that was for the purchase of a Bobcat T4 skid loader. And that is supposed to cover the expense of the fiber flex for park ground cover.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none. Spending money, so is this a roll call, Kevin?
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you. Our next item is also a resolution. It has to do with regional designation for Robbins Island Park Complex. Again, staff brought to us for approval a resolution supporting regional park designation for Robbins Island Park Complex. The application identifies the facility meeting high standards for a natural resource-based outdoor recreation and provides eligibility to apply for Regional Parks and Trails legacy funding. Again, after some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will move to adopt the resolution supporting this regional park designation for Robbins Island Park Complex.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
You're not going to take any comments, Mr. Mayor?
Would you like to make some comments, Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead.
My question would be to the city attorney, designating Robbins Island as a regional park, does that bring forth any obligations to the city of things that we have to do there, either now or possibly in the future because of some legislation the state might pass?
Mayor Calvin, Councilmember Johnson, that's not an issue that I've been asked to research, so I don't know the answer. I can certainly get that answer to you, though.
I mean, I know that, that's one way to access funds from the legacy funding that's available for such purposes, but I'm also concerned that the state might pass some mandate down the road that says if you have a regional park, you got to do this, or you got to have this, or make some requirements that we might not want to do.
Whether that's the case or it might be the case, I don't know today. I certainly can provide that answer to the city administrator and have him provide it to council, however.
I don't see it as a big issue, but I wanted to ask the question before I voted. Thank you. Aye.
Any additional discussion? Councilmember Nelson.
There was very good discussion at the meeting that was reasons why we should do this. So if Councilmember Johnson would feel better, perhaps that should be repeated for him before we vote.
Councilmember Christensen?
You're asking for why we're going to do this?
No, what I said was that the meeting, we had a great discussion about why this would be important and things that it might help us to do. So if there's some question about it, perhaps we should ask staff to repeat what was said to us at the Public Works meeting so that we're more comfortable with the reason why we are proceeding with this.
I understood that the main reason was to try to get funding. There was some grants and funds available if it's designated as a park complex, similar to our park plan. It had to be in a resolution by the city so that we could apply for funding for different park items or entities. That's the main reason. Maybe Mr. Brizendine, if he wants to share some others.
Mr. Brizendine, would you like to make some comments in regards to the question?
Mayor Calvin, members of the council, the designation is indeed a foothold to potentially open ourselves up for legacy dollars, but the reality of it is it's more to become known as a regional site, the importance of that location and what it means to the community and the surrounding area. One aspect of it is obviously you need this designation to apply for legacy dollars, which has been a discussion all along if we want to make some of the improvements in the park plan. But bottom line, I think it's a good designation to have, whether resources follow it or not.
Additional discussion? Continue with roll call, please.
Mr. Fagerly?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 7 was to declare cost to be assessed, order preparation for assessment roll, and call for assessment hearing on project 1601, 1602, 1603A, and 1603B, and this is a resolution. Again, our staff brought to us for approval, wanting us to declare cost to be assessed to order the preparation of the assessment roll and call for the assessment hearing on these projects. Bids were opened on April 5th, and the amount received to perform the necessary improvements is known. Staff preparing the accessible footage and the amount for each affected lot. After some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following. And I will introduce a resolution to declare the cost to be assessed, comma, order preparation of the assessment roll, comma, and to call for the assessment hearing on May 16th this year for projects 1601, 1602, 03A, and 03B.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Meske?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Councilmember Christensen.
Item number 8 was accepting a bid and award the contract for 1604, and this is a resolution. Staff brought to us again for approval of the acceptance of a bid and award the contract to Dunick Incorporated in the amount of $34,787, and to adopt the project budget for project number 1604 and authorize necessary signatures. The project includes the parking lot repair adjacent to 1801 Technology Drive Northeast. That is out at the Minwest campus, and if you are familiar with the area, it's in quite disrepair. After some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will introduce a resolution to accept the bid awarded to Dunick's in the amount of $34,787, and to adopt the project budget for number 1604 with appropriate signatures.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Plowman?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Meske?
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Christensen.
Our 9th item was project number 1502 final. And this is also a resolution. Sean brought to us for approval change order number 1 in the amount of $1,800. Accept the project and authorize final payment to Land Pride Construction LLC in the amount of $6,168.42 for project number 1502. This project includes sanitary sewer and water main improvements on Benson Avenue Southeast, Lakeland Drive Northeast, Airport Drive Southwest, and east through Highway number 12. Again, after some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will introduce the resolution to approve that change order number 1 in the amount of $1,800, accept the project and authorize final payment to Land Pride in the amount of $6168.42 for project number 1502.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Beggerly.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes.
Our last item was for information only, some non-agenda items that were brought up at the end of the meeting. Our committee discussed the potential of the Willmar Public School District cutting the position of crossing guards at Kennedy School. There was some concern for that. Also, a citizen concern of other infrastructure needs to be prioritized instead of investing funds only into the park plan was discussed. Also, the recent resignation of MEC Director Wes Hobb was noted. That was the end of our meeting. We adjourned at 5:56 p.m., and if there are no comments or questions, I would move to file these minutes as stated.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to file the minutes. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
I'm not sure the minutes did justice to our conversation regarding the purchase policy. That was under the director update, and I would like to request that the purchase policy go back to the Finance Committee for clarification. I think all 4 of us at the committee agreed that our interpretation of it was different than what was presented by Administrator Cruz, and it might be good for us to clarify that, both for the staff's sake and for our sake, to make sure that we stay on the right track with how things are presented. Do I need to make a motion to do that?
You certainly could if you'd like to.
All right, I will make a motion that we
I'll second that
refer
motion.
that.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Did something down here. Did I hear? You wanted to make a comment?
Pardon?
I said I heard something down here. I didn't know if I wanted to make a comment. Seeing and hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry.
Did we file the minutes too?
No.
No, not yet. We didn't know. Came under discussion. Now we have a motion on the table to file the minutes. Are there additional discussions to that? Seeing and hearing none. Councilmember Johnson, just want to apologize to you for not asking that question. Thanks for pointing that out so we get that on the table.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Next, we have Labor Relations Committee report. I believe we're going to Councilmember Meske.
Yes, we did meet. I filled in for Councilmember Amon as the vice chair. Called the meeting to order April 13th at 4:45. We had 3 items that we dealt with. The first one, City Administrator Cruz brought forth for consideration a recommendation to extend work hours on a department-by-department basis effective May 22nd through September 3rd, 2016. The extended hours were defined as 4 9-hour days starting at 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on Monday through Thursday, and a half day from 7 a.m. to 12 noon on Friday. The committee discussed the pros and cons for both the public and employees, and the consensus was to receive this item as information only. Our item number 4 on our agenda was the organization and job description changes / hiring. City Administrator Cruz requested the committee consider an organizational structure which includes a position of Administrative Services Director. I explained that with the announcement of City Clerk Halliday in September, the position of City Clerk will be modified to be that of a more traditional City Clerk. The Treasurer and Human Resources duties presently done by Clerk Halliday would be moved to the Finance Director and Administrative Services Director. The proposed job description for the Administrative Services Director would have the primary function of managing the human resources within the city and provide administrative oversight of overall internal operations. It'd be a director-level position, reporting to the city administrator, and in the absence of the administrator would be the second in command. After much discussion on it, we decided that we should discuss this at a full council at the next labor meeting, which would be scheduled for April 20th or 27th. And our last item we had was City Administrator Cruz updated the committee on the assessing department merger with Candioi County. Cruz stated the meetings continue to be held to work on developing an agreement which is expected to be brought forth to the City Council and County Board on May 2nd and May 3rd. Again, that item was for information only. I'd move to file the minutes of the Labor Relations Committee.
Second.
Motion made, second, to file the minutes. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
I listened to the labor meeting, and it clearly stated that the council was going to, that it was the intent for all council members to be asked whether they could attend the meeting and to clarify with that. And we did not receive an email. I now see that it is scheduled for Wednesday. I have another commitment. I'm just wondering why that wasn't followed through after the meeting to see when people could attend.
Councilmember Meske.
It was the intent of the committee that all council members were to be polled to see which one, either the 20th or the 27th, would get the most council members there. So I apologize that didn't happen, but that was the intent of the committee.
That was clear on the tape, so that's why I asked.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we going on the 20th then? Is that what the scoop is, or you had a conflict?
I'm just one person. We were going to get an email. I don't know who, can everyone else attend?
Do we want to do a poll now, Councilmember Meske?
I don't care how we do it. I know it was the intent of the committee to get as many of the members as we get there because we thought it was a fairly important item, so.
So of the council members here, who can attend on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday?
So two can't.
And we're not sure about council member.
What about the 27th?
27th is, how about the 27th? Who can make the 27th? Oh, there it is. Okay. Be the 27th. Okay, we'll move it to the 27th. Okay. Any other discussion before we file the minutes? Motion is on the table to file the minutes. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Next, we have consideration of Central Community Transit Joint Powers Board Agreement. Mr. Halliday.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you know, especially with two members on the Transit Board, that pursuant to direction from the Minnesota Department of Transit, the conversations have been in place for about 3/4 of a year to expand the Central Community Transit activities with currently Candioi County, City of Willmar, and Renville to include Meeker County and the City of Litchfield. And tonight, Central Community Transit Director Tiffany Collins is here to give more details to this new Joint Powers Board Agreement. And it's the recommendation from the group to adopt this new agreement, and it will supersede all previous agreements that we've had with Renville County and so forth, and this will be the new direction. She'll let you know the anticipated date and so forth, so we would just call on her, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Collins, would you like to make a presentation to council?
Sure. Basically, what we would like to do is add 2 new members to the current Joint Powers Board, and so it will make it a 5-entity Joint Powers Board. That would be including the City of Willmar, Renville County, Candioi County, and then adding the City of Litchfield and Meeker County. And what this does is bring the 3 counties together and administratively provide public transit in those 3 areas. What it does is also add 2 more board members from Meeker County and the City of Litchfield, and another at-large member from Meeker County. There's also language that maintains that all of the local share that is necessary to continue with the public funding that we do receive state and federally, that is shared equally among all 5 partners. And so that would be in the language of this new agreement. There was some discussion just to clarify if there was a termination from any of the entities, how that will work, and just some clarification, making sure that it was timely enough to make sure that the public transit could move forward into the future, and making sure that they could fill out the appropriate applications and continue with the funding. So a January 1 date could continue with that. And basically, resolutions have been passed at the City of Litchfield and Meeker County to become part of Central Community Transit, and they have some reserved funds that they would like to designate for any of the future needs that they might have at their current building, any of the vehicles that they have currently that they'd like to use towards that. So I'm here to ask you for a resolution to join in with those 5 entities as part of the Central Community Transit.
Thank you. Council?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion remains and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Anderson, followed by Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for being here. Maybe I didn't catch that right. Can you tell me how many people are coming from Meeker County, including the at-large? And did you say 3, or did you say?
There will be a total of 5 more. So there will be 2 representatives from the City of Litchfield, 2 representatives from Meeker County, and another at-large from some other entity there. That is equal to what it is in Canyon County now, so.
Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Yep.
The discussion? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Is this going to create some efficiencies, and was this mandated by the state? You either do this or you don't get funding.
Yes, it is in the goal to create further efficiencies. Right now, administratively, each of those 3 entities were duplicating administrative duties. And so now when it follows under one umbrella, we can cut out a couple of those things that we're already doing. And mandated as far as the state of Minnesota is very pushing the item of mergers to create those efficiencies. The overall goal is to add more service out to the public, and this is one of the ways that they feel is a good way to save resources that are being duplicated across some of the transit systems, and they feel that this is a good way to add more service out to the public. One thing I am very proud to say is that the City of Willmar did benefit from, so far, the merger already. We did add evening service and Sunday service at beginning of 2016. So with some of those efficiencies, we were able to put more service out to the public.
The administrative duties then will be done where?
They're housed in Willmar, and so most of those are being done there. We will have staff and some administrative staff in our Litchfield office and in the Olivia office.
So will all the payroll come out of Willmar? Is it
Yes.
Similar? And then, is the name going to change?
No, the Central Community Transit, as we merged with Renville County, that was established last year when that first merger took place, that was going to be the name. Those Meeker County and City of Litchfield vehicles and their name will change.
Have we had any requests like from Swift or any other counties too, or?
At this point, I'm not sure, but at this point, I think we should be focusing on these 3 counties at this point. So.
Thank you again.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Tiffany, for coming. She does a very good job, and we have a real good working relationship with Renville County. Hopefully with Meeker, it'll be just as good. They did have an option to go to Wright County or McLeod, and they chose Canyon High, so hopefully it's a good fit for us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Additional discussion. Tiffany, I too want to thank you for the work that you do out there. And I also want to thank Councilmember Fagerly for his tenacity when this agreement was being put together, because he made sure that the city of Willmar was represented there. So thank you for your hard work on that committee. So thank you very much. Additional discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Do we have the motion?
Yeah, there was a motion before we had the discussion. The motion was made by Rick, and I think
Oh,
Audrey
okay.
seconded it.
We're good. All right. Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution does pass. Next, we have consideration of an ordinance to rezone from ag to general business in R2 for Erickson Land Company. Mr. Peterson.
Kelvin, members of the council, Erickson Land Company has submitted an application to rezone a narrow strip of property that lies north of Trentwood Estates. The expansion of the Trentwood Estates property will provide additional space for future development. The property is intended to be combined with the existing lots in the plat, and it would be combined with the additional land that they own north of the plat. The land to the north is zoned ag, and to be combined with the existing parcels in Trentwood Estates needs to be rezoned and ultimately replatted. It's the recommendation of staff that the ordinance to rezone be introduced for a public hearing on May 2nd, 2016.
Council?
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilmember Fagerly, seconded by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Just a clarification, I think in the West Central Tribune, it said it was going to be along Highway 71, but it looks like Lakeland Drive to me. Okay, we'll let it go this time, Shelby. We'll let it go this time.
Shelby is here to apologize that she had that typo, and Mr. Erickson was on the radio the next day and corrected it as well, so no harm intended, I'm sure. Any other comments? Simple motion, all those in favor of the motion for the ordinance, introduce the ordinance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Next, consideration of preliminary plat, Trentwood Estates, 3rd edition. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, consistent with the previous action, with the expansion of those properties, the property has been proposed for a new plat that would be called Trentwood Estates 3rd edition. It extends those two parcels by 24 feet because the properties that are being rezoned are meets and bounds descriptions. They cannot be combined with the platted property that exists, so a new plat needs to be created. It will simply mean that Lot 1 and Lot 2 of Block 1 of Trentwood Estates will be expanded by 24 feet. It's a recommendation of staff that the council approve the preliminary plat as submitted.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to consider the preliminary plat. All, discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Next is consideration of introduction, Mr. Erickson, thank you for being here tonight. I was assuming you didn't want to say anything unless there was questions, so thank you very much for the project that you have going there. It's a good project, so thank you. You bet. Consideration and introduction of zoning ordinance text amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, for the better part of a year, the Planning Commission and staff, a subcommittee of the Planning Commission has been working on a draft ordinance to provide central business district design standards. These are pretty basic standards, but they will address building placement on lots, the general design of buildings, scales, materials, entrances, windows, architectural projections, awnings, and signs. Will also deal with landscaping, parking, and stormwater. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing at their meeting last week and subsequently approved the ordinance text amendment and sent it on to the council. It's a recommendation of staff that the ordinance be introduced for a public hearing to be held May 2nd, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Motion been made, seconded. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Next is the continuation of the local option sales tax discussion. I'll do a brief introduction here. We have had numerous emails that we've all received in regards to this. I did have a conversation with Councilmember Amon today. Councilmember Amon has had some surgery, so he was unable to attend tonight. One of the things I think is that, the local option sales tax discussion is a good discussion to have, but I wonder if this is the right time to be doing it. We have not all of our council members here. We kind of took the information a week ago, and so I guess I'll leave it up to the council to decide if they want to continue the discussion or if they want to just put it on hold and gather some more public information. So I've heard comments both ways from council members. So Councilmember Nelson.
I'm just curious how you see proceeding. I've heard lots of comments that people in the community would like to have the opportunity to have discussion. So I'm wondering if we could schedule something for community discussion, if that should be done before we proceed. It was suggested perhaps that we hold a community conversation. I guess I've heard a lot of input from people interested for the right reasons. Just the question of what they should be. And also one of the emails we received, I think, had documentation on how New Ulm has proceeded. And I found it very interesting with their process and how the community was bringing forth projects that they wanted to see. And I guess I'm interested in allowing the community to have input, both positive and, both pro and con, however. I'm just not quite sure how we're going to proceed if we don't, what's the process going to be? Because we can delay it, and we won't have a process in place for the next conversation, so.
Well, I think what I would recommend is that we would refer it back to finance and let finance kind of vet that stuff out and bring it back to council for the full discussion. I think we might be a little ahead of where we should be. I think that, we've got basically 13 issues that council and staff have put on the table. Councilmember Johnson, I think you're recently back. You probably haven't been briefed totally on it. I don't know if you're prepared to discuss it this evening or not, but I think, I know in emails and what I mentioned a week ago when we had our meeting that Council Amon wanted to be involved in that discussion. I just think we could delay the discussion and move it to finance. But Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there has been maybe some misconception, and maybe we've got the cart before the horse. What we're really talking about, I think, is do we want to come forth to the citizens and say, we are going to allow you to vote on this? This is democracy. I think that we should do several things. One, I think we need to make a decision. Are we interested in having a local option sales tax? If we are, then we should work on how we develop the projects that go into that local option sales tax. There are 13 items here. I'm not sure that that's a totally definitive list. I think there could be things added, there could be things deleted, but we do need to let the public have some input into this. But back to the question at hand that is, should the council move forward with the concept of a local option sales tax? And I can't think of a more democratic way to allow citizens to decide if they want to be taxed than to put it on the ballot. So to me, I think we should have a unanimous vote saying, yes, let's let the citizens decide if this is something that they want. That's the first step. And we have to get past that hurdle before we start talking about what the projects are going to be.
Okay, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would disagree with that. I think first comes the project and the cost of the project, and then determine how to pay for that project, whether it's through a CIP or a local option sales tax, and if it is a local option sales tax, we need to know the cost of what that project's going to be. I mean, it has to be presented according to state statute. You got to know when and how long and how much. We have none of those presently. We're just asking the public to, if they want to be taxed again for one of these 13 projects or maybe some other project. I think we're going about it all wrong. It is the cart before the horse here. And, when we did the library, the need was presented. We had an approximate cost, and then we presented it to the public, and the public said, yes, we're open for a local option sales tax, 0.5%, paid for the library, shut it down. First time the state had ever done that, I believe. And then when he asked for it again for the Civic Center and the airport and some park, or some trails,
Industrial.
those three.
Industrial Park.
Industrial Park, yeah. And, again, the citizens stepped forward, but we had the projects, we had about how much it was going to cost, and as we all know, the Civic Center entrance was about 5 times as much as we had estimated it to be, so our estimates were pretty wrong. So I think we need to establish some projects first, and I don't know if it's the public that comes forward with these projects. I agree they should come from them, because that is government from the bottom up instead of the top down from our request or staff request or administration. It needs to come from the public, and I'm even uncomfortable having them come forward with projects for the fact that we need to have a priority list of our own, the city council does. We've been in disrepair for, holy smokes, our buildings for 5, 10, 15 years. We're just finding out now, the auditorium leak, the community center needs work, the civic center needs a new ice maker, the public works, we're putting a roof on there. We've been in disrepair here, and it's due to lack of maintenance. Evidently, we didn't foresee this, or we didn't put money aside for it, and so all of a sudden we're shocked. We've got to spend $1 million on the auditorium, so much at the Civic Center, et cetera. And we need to make this list of priorities first of where our money goes. We're already taxed property taxes, and some of that money should be set aside as it is for capital improvement. And that's where the money comes from for the refrigeration unit at Civic Center. We need to plan on the next one, because that refrigeration unit is probably going to be obsolete in 20 years, so you better plan on another one. The community center, tear it down and build a new one, I don't know. I'm not for that. I think we need to fix it up. But again, using capital improvement funds, CIP funds. We're taxing ourselves out of business, out of our communities, across the country. I mean, there's so many taxes. I looked at a property tax statement today when we were at the evaluation meeting, and there's about 12 items on there with money attached to it. And that's all taxes. It says a fee for this, a fee for that, a waste disposal fee, this fee, that fee. It's blowing me away. In the next 10, 20 years, we're supposed to spend $20 million on our waste treatment plant, so we don't have salt going through there. And we've been mandated to do that. It's going to be our money. We just gave tax abatement to several projects in the last couple of years here. So we're losing that tax. Our tax base, I don't know if it's growing the way we want it to grow or not. I mean, the school is just taking some property now. Got to be non-taxed, not going to be taxed. All that acreage east of the Y. We've had increases in electric and water and sewer, and I've got people calling me in my ward complaining about how much can we do. Now, 0.5% sales tax doesn't seem like a lot, but it all adds up. And here's the bottom line for me. We've been told it'll bring in approximately $2.3 million per year, $23 million over 10 years. Who would you rather have spend that money, government or consumers? I would rather have the consumers spending that money instead of government. They're the ones that help us to expand our tax base. They buy the services and the goods in this town, so our businesses can pay their taxes and expand, hopefully, our tax base. I I speak against the local option sales tax. I think it's, but I do agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that we shouldn't rush into this thing and get it shoved down our throats, because some people have told me that that's the way they feel it's going. It's just going, bring it up, run it down, and you got to remember, folks, that it's easy to get on a bandwagon of a wish list, a field house, or 12 of those other 13 items that were on the list. Once that bandwagon starts downhill, it's hard to stop. It's very hard to stop, and government does that. It's easy to spend other people's money. Very easy. I think we need to slow down, as you suggested, and think long and hard about it.
We're kind of getting into the discussion, and I was kind of hoping to head that off. But I think we maybe opened up the proverbial Pandora's box. But I have Councilmember Nelson, followed by Plowman, and followed by Johnson.
Councilmember Johnson was before me.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Johnson, I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm next, thank you. I'm not.
I was looking this way, not towards you, so.
That's all right.
Thank you for yielding.
Well, I've been out of town for almost 3 weeks, but reading the minutes of the meetings that have taken place and so on in preparation for tonight's meeting, I share some of the concerns expressed by Councilmember Nelson and Councilmember Anderson, and some expressed by Councilmember Christensen. Number one is the procedure. It seems like the emphasis was on just doing it and thinking about what projects we might do later once we had the funding. And I think Councilmember Nelson used the phrase, "We got the cart before the horse," maybe. That's what it looked like to me, just reading it fresh. I wasn't present in any discussions, but just reading the materials for tonight's meeting. But and I'm looking at. I think when we look at doing these kinds of capital improvements, the last time we made made the addition to the out at the Civic Center and the Blue Line Arena, connecting them, and actually when that was being done, we were under stress, I think, with our ice-making infrastructure out there, from what I understand, and I've learned since being on the council the last few years. So I would like to see some kind of, I think we need to consider a fiscal analysis as to not only what the cost of the project would be, but what our future revenue and projected tax base growth might be, so that we have some idea where we're going to have the money to maintain these facilities. As we now are sitting here with facilities that, as Mr. Christensen pointed out, that we've fallen behind on maintenance, and to the point we're talking about considerable issues. Some of the stuff that apparently was presented to the committee with respect to the Community Activity Center showed that the repairs might exceed the cost of a new building. I don't know where those figures came from. They were just there. But that's my concern, is about whether or not we have an analysis and shows that we're, for example, like we should have been funding for replacement of the compressors for the ice making at the arena all these years, and we weren't, and it's an expensive item. We had trouble out there with our failure of our HVAC system, and that's got a replacement. A lot of things that we should have been setting funds aside for, and I think we need to look down the road and kind of project what our tax base growth may or may not be, and what our revenue growth may be, as best we can, to have some idea of how we're going to maintain these facilities. I think it's great to have these amenities in the community, but we want to maintain them. And I think we should consider some kind of fiscal analysis as part of this process. Thank you.
Well, I'm wondering if we go with our presentation, or if we continue the discussion here, because we're kind of headed down that path. And is it fair to the process if we don't see the presentation represented? So, Councilmember Nelson.
We had the presentation the other day. I'm not sure what you're referring to, unless it's different. I feel like we've got more homework to do. The items listed on there, I think, to me, we've all acknowledged we're behind. I've heard someone make the statement, we're $100 million behind. And then you hear the statement, we have, what, 50 million in the bank. We review that every year with what we can do, but maybe we all owe this community a list of what we are behind. We're still waiting for the building report. Every week, we talk about community center and utilities and what are we doing? So I think we've got more homework to do before we even have the conversations of whether these are important, and I still think we owe the public the chance to bring forth some projects. Why can't we dream about some things? When was the last time you were in Alexandria or St. Cloud or Minneapolis or Mankato? Do you know whether you paid sales tax there? That's how they're growing their cities. They're doing some things. I think we got to be open to some suggestions along with our other budget. So I'm not quite sure, I don't know what the process is, but I think we need more information.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good conversation to have, especially with this season being income tax season.
Today, ironic.
Well, I think everybody would admit there may be smarting, and I don't know that there's anybody that would voluntarily just pay more taxes for fun, but point well taken that this is a way that our local community can take control a little bit more specifically regarding spending projects that we're going to undertake and whatnot. I see multiple viewpoints that I think are really good ones. Yeah, we're taxed and we're feed and all this stuff, but I also see the point of Councilmember Anderson that ultimately the citizens do get the ability to decide this one. I do think it's important before giving them the ability and giving ourselves the ability, because we vote as well, to vote on this, to maybe narrow the scope of focus just a little bit. And for that reason, I think that it might be a good idea maybe to go back to finance and maybe kick around a couple ideas that we could narrow the focus, because the individuals that I've talked to have said, I've asked them, do you support local option sales tax or don't you? And they go, well, for what? For specifically what? And the answer that you give them is going to determine their level of support for it. So I think if we're able to narrow the focus as a body, and then possibly, I think, some ideas at least that could be discussed on a committee level of incorporating the community, gathering some of their feedback, really gives some ownership to the whole measure. And I think that ownership is an important part of whether or not a community is going to stand behind what you're going to do. And I think if people get the feeling and the impression from this body that we are open and that we don't necessarily go into it with preconceived notions that taxes are evil, taxes are bad, because I don't think people like taxes, but in some instances it's necessary, and especially depending on what things we want to provide for our community. I think those are important steps to take, and I think we can get just a little bit more detailed, and like I said, I think we can narrow the focus just a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I think it's a little bit of a mischaracterization that some have said we're going to come up with this pot of money and then decide how to spend it. That's not the way I envision it at all. It's if the council has an appetite for a local option sales tax, then we look at the projects and see which ones merit consideration and then decide how many dollars it needs to be. I still feel strongly that we need to know if the council is even going to vote for the local option sales tax. Why go through all of this trouble and anticipation of discussing what the projects might be, only to come back to the council and have the council say, we don't want to do a local option sales tax? And I've heard some say that they don't want to, so that's fine. Let's just lay it out there. Or do we want to, or do we not want to have a local option sales tax? We can get public input, we can get council input, we can do that part of it. But before we do that, we need to know if the council is willing to do that.
Well, I think on our next steps that came out of last Monday's meeting is we're going to try to ask that question tonight. So, I mean, if that's where we want to be, we certainly can ask that question, but Councilmember Meskey, I got to make sure I always want to say it the other way, so I got to make sure I get it straight in my mind here, so.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin.
All right, perfect.
For me, it depends, and that's going to be the problem is, for me, it truly depends, because the city council has the authority to bring this forward to the voters, which you're saying, and then that's a referendum on the idea. The problem is, I don't feel as a council person I should be bringing forward a project that does not have broad support of the community. So for me, and I said the cart before the horse last meeting, I'll say it again, I'm not opposed to local option sales tax. I'll say that again as well, if it's for the right project and it has broad support. And so to me, it needs to go back to a different entity other than the finance, because if it goes to finance, you're already assuming that we're going forward with a local option sales tax piece. To me, it has to go back somewhere we're having a discussion about projects and validity of those projects. Because if it's a project that it looks like the public is broadly behind, I am totally in favor of supporting a local option sales tax. If it has weak public support, I would not be. Where that would go, I don't know, but when you put it into finance, it's already implied that we're already moving forward with some kind of a tax option.
Okay, Councilmember Nelson.
I agree with Councilmember Meskey. I've heard some pretty creative things out there in the community, things that we certainly haven't thought about, and things that might even make sense from a financial standpoint of how we consolidate and become more efficient and do some things. So I think we got to find a way to look at those things, because maybe the people who are saying don't do that would say, oh yeah, that's a really great idea, because you are going to long-term end up saving dollars that are coming out of our budget right now. You know, back to fixing a building versus replacing it. Maybe there's some options there. So I think we got to get a way to get it back out into the community and let some input come in before we make our decision. Because I'm afraid if we decide no, I mean, we will just stifle some great energy and things out there that could be good for the economy, good for housing, good for all sorts of things. And I'd like to hear about those things, first of all, and find a way to empower our citizens of our community to tell us what they want.
I would like, I'm sorry, Councilman.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I'll comment after you're done.
What I was going to say is I would like to recommend that we send it back to Community Development. Councilman Johnson, I'm sorry.
I mean, I would just add to Councilmember Nelson's remarks that, I mean, looking at the statute that governs this, you know, any resolution that we present to the voters for approval has to have at a minimum what the proposed tax rate will be and how the revenues will be used. I guess I'm not sure what the level of specificity that's required, that requires, Robert, but maybe you can comment on that. And I think the voters, if they're going to approve something, are going to want to see, you know, what we're intending to do. I mean, so I think, when I think the comments about having the cart before the horse, Councilmember Anderson, really go to the fact that I think we have to do some of these things. It's not that, you know, we have to give some specifics, and I agree with giving it to the people for an election probably, you know, I don't know. But like I say, I want to see some fiscal analysis, but in addition, it does call for a general election. This isn't, so I mean, it's not like we're going to get a low turnout and, you know, the election might not really represent the interests of the people. It's a general election, so.
And we went over a lot of those things at the last meetings. So. Would you like them?
Well, I mean, the public might be watching tonight and they don't know.
Sure, sure. Mr. Cruz, do you want to go over the requirements of the statute for how we would go through the process?
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, maybe I could just, you know, summarize from a staff perspective. We had our retreat, and at that retreat, staff believes we had direction to identify some projects of regional significance and bring it forward to start a conversation with the community about what projects we may want to pursue. And so staff came up with the 10 projects, and you see them listed up there on the screen. And I'll just go through them. Community Center, Backup Emergency Operations Center, Mid-Minnesota Office Space, and Iraq 8 Studio. Swanson Field and lighting improvements. We have substandard lighting structures that are pending failure and inadequate lighting to meet the requirements. Civic Center refrigeration system is in need of replacement for both sheets. Robbins Island Regional Park, there's a park plan with about $7 million worth of improvements. Year-round ice arena facility, multifamily workforce housing incentive. The tax must be used for capital projects, so there's some ideas on how we could stimulate some multifamily housing, possibly in the downtown. Regional Emergency Training Center, curling club facility, Block 50 parking structure, that's between the hospital and the library, and the Y South End overpass. There may be some gap funding for that project that needs to be filled. And then the council added at our last discussion, Field House, Transportation Initiative, and Becker Avenue Plan. And so those are kind of a menu to start the conversation. From a staff perspective, we think that starts with, some ideas like this to build off of. That's not a total list. But then for staff to get to the next question of what each one of these costs is really a big task. And do we want to go down the path of looking at a parking structure when that's, maybe something that you don't want to do? So it's a way of, focusing what do you want, where do we want to go? And so that would be a question that staff has is we can pursue information on all of these, but maybe that's a waste of resources to do that when there may be items there that, you would not want to pursue. And then there may be other items on the list that should be on the list that, from a staff perspective and our short conversation with council that need to be added. So this is the start of a process to involve the public, to get ideas out there, but to narrow it down, knowing that over the next 2 or 3 months, we have to come up with a ballot question if the council wants to pursue this local option sales tax. Now, most other communities will identify what the estimated cost of construction is plus bonding. For example, the $8 million bond issue that was passed in 2004, listing the project's estimated cost and time frame. Those are just, estimates. We don't know what the actual cost of construction, and like the Civic Center, that project did grow as we got more technical information from the architect and everybody. So the question is, how do we go down this path? You have a list in front of you. And we're open to your suggestions and ideas.
Can you go to the slide that talks steps? So if we push this to community development, or I shouldn't say push it, move it to community development, then we could come back with those discussions following the same timeframes, correct?
Yes.
Councilmember Meske.
Since that's up there, I would say that the April 18th agenda should have been evaluate projects, and then you could decide about a local sales option after that. I think that is a major sticking point for many members of the council and probably many of the members of our public.
Certainly so. I'm sorry, Councilmember Nelson, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm just curious, I'm not opposed to bringing it to community development. So are we asking the public to come and speak at community development with some of their project requests? How are we going to get community input if we just keep it at this table or with just the council members? I think we got to find a way to allow the community to have some input into this. So, if we're opening up the community development meeting to say, come with your proposals or some suggestions, or present them to who? Because we'll be sitting looking at the same thing at community development that we're looking at right now unless we find a way to engage the community and to come up with some things.
Council, what do you wish to do? Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an idea, if the next step would be to bring it to community development, I mean, obviously that, if we were going to decide that tonight, then that would be decided, that at the next community development meeting, this is the topic of conversation. So I think it would then be pretty simple to broadcast that around, that the idea of local option sales tax is going to be discussed at the next meeting, and encourage the public to, I encourage the public to attend any public meeting and be
Right.
involved in any public meeting. So therefore, if that's what we're going to do, and we know that, then, yeah, I mean, then pretty simple task to advertise that that's what's going to be discussed. And, you know, the larger the turnout, the better, in my opinion.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, if you're bringing it back to community development, then we need to probably meet here or in a larger area. But we do have to get the community involved. Because remember when we did the library, there was a citizens group that helped promote it.
Right.
So it's very important. But I do remember the last one that went off, all kinds of people said, "What'd you take it off for?" And I said, "We had to, because it sunset." But they said, "We don't miss it. We don't miss paying that half cent." So it's a good tool, because you get, what, 20,000 cars into town every day? Half of them are buying something in town. So, but if you have something multi-purpose for the young, middle-aged, seniors, they'll support it.
Councilmember Nelson. I'm sorry, Councilmember Anderson, followed by Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm all for the community involvement. I think that's the way we have to go. But I would hate to limit them to only being able to come to the community development meeting. You know, some people may feel more comfortable just calling, or maybe they would want to email. You know, I think we should have all avenues open for the public to get their ideas put forth for us. So, and maybe community development could talk about that at that meeting as other ways to get the community involved. But just having one opportunity to come to a meeting like that, and I agree with Councilmember Fagerly, it should be held here and probably videotaped.
Yeah, and I guess what I was kind of thinking is that the community development would develop the next steps. So this is what we want to do. We want to select, you know, community input. We want to, you know, have a meeting, maybe out at the conference center again. We want to, you know, all that in talk process. I mean, June is, you know, it's a month away, and then, you know, we have to have everything ready by August so that we can then, you know, educate the public on what the projects are that have been selected.
But it's still up to the public to vote.
Still up to the public, yep, yep. Public still votes, yep, exactly. Does anybody, do we want to just send it there, or does somebody want to make a motion to send it there, or what do you want to do? Councilmember Plowman.
Oh, well, I defer to Councilmember Anderson, since he had the prior involvement.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, I think. I'll move that we move it to community development to develop a process.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to move it to community development to develop a process to gather input. A discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you,
Alderman
Mr. Mayor.
Nelson.
If we're going to get it out to the public, it needs to, I don't know, be on our website. And does the city have a Facebook page too? I don't even know. They do. Invite people that way. I mean, not everybody can come to a 4:45 meeting at this place on a Thursday, you know, if you're going to get 10, 15 people. But there are groups of people out there, like we all received, you know, I don't know, 7, 10, 12 emails today. It was spammed out to a lot of sporting people, and they said, you know, email the council because it's effective. You can't always go to the meeting. That was one of the reasons, and that's a great way to do it. But they're, I don't know, I hate to call them a special interest group, but they are. And And because you get 10, 20, 30, 40 emails, that does not represent, that doesn't mean the community's crying out for this. It does not mean that. It means that you have a certain amount of people that say, yeah, let's get on this wish list and fund it and then get rolling on this. So let's think of other ways we can, reach them. Phone calls, email, the Facebook page. Is the Facebook page active? I don't even know. Is it quite active?
Places.
Okay.
Yeah, the city one is real active, the police department is extremely active.
I know the police department is.
Yeah, but, and I don't know, does anybody know how many hits the one gets for the city? I mean, I follow it, so, I mean, every time there's a comment on there, like, I mean, the discussion about local option sales tax was on there, so.
Okay. But anyway.
But I think what I heard being proposed is that the process be developed, not that we
Right.
plead for everybody to come to the meeting. I mean, I think at that point, the public input comes after the process is developed. So we don't get the cart in front of the horse again, where we have, 40 people show up and say, I want this project, when in reality, we're just trying to develop a process. So I think it's the process is what we're voting on, not, and then they'll come back to us and tell us, this is how we'd like to do it. And we can get those suggestions to the 4 members that are on that committee. Some of the ideas that we're talking about. Councilmember Nelson.
Councilmember Fagerly had made a statement about, people saying, why did you stop? And I want to go back to, I don't know how many of you read the article that was attached to one of the emails that we received regarding New Ulm. I think it would be helpful for us to have some information on what other communities are doing. In particular, I think, make sure that we have an understanding of how other communities are operating. And I think in New Ulm's case, they're doing another vote to see if they want to continue it versus stop it. And so I think we need to take a look at what communities around us, and they're competing for businesses and people to live there. And I think that we need to be aware of that. And so I don't know if staff can put some things together from what other communities are doing, or if we need to ask someone in the community to do some research on that. But I think it would be helpful for us to have an understanding of that.
Okay. Additional discussion to the question. Councilmember Fagerly.
Could we get from staff what communities have a local option sales tax right now? Because people will say, you put one in, I'm not going to shop in Willmar. And then they go to St. Cloud and Wade Park and they got to hire one. Mankato and,
Exactly.
so if we could get a list of that too for the entire state.
We have that.
That's what I was meaning.
Okay. Councilmember Nelson.
Just one more request. When are we going to get that building report? And people are asking, what's going on with community center? What are you meeting about with the, with the city hall?
Can we
When-
say to the question we have it at hand, and then we?
Well, I think it's part of where we're going. So I'm just curious if that can be, I think we have to understand what we need to do.
Mr. Cruz, do you have an answer on
I
when
was
we
gonna
can
defer
expect the
to-
facilities report?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I was going to defer to Public Works Director Christensen, who's working with the consultant, and I think it's near ready to present to the council.
Mr. Christensen?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the last conversations I had with the consultant that's working on that facility plan, they are putting together different options for what the presentation of that information might look like for you, for us to look at and make a determination how we want all of the buildings' information to be presented. So I anticipate that shortly, within a couple weeks, I'd imagine, and we'll be able to see that and see what it is we want to see from each of those buildings.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson, does that answer your question?
Yes,
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a tax we're talking about, and I know we're going to ask the public whether or not they want to be taxed with a sales tax. And just have to repeat myself from the last meeting that every dollar the government takes out is a tax from the big pie. Is that much less for the private sector to make profits on and sell goods and services so they can pay their property taxes and their oodles of other taxes that we pay? So it's a tax.
Without a doubt. That's why it's called the sales tax, yeah. So, good point, though. Additional discussion. All those in favor of the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Downtown flower baskets. City Administrator Cruz.
Mr. Mayor and Council, on Friday, I learned that the downtown group is, and Bev Doherty is here. I don't want to put her on the spot, but right now, there is no money budgeted with the city. Last year, there was $9,000 budgeted for flower baskets. Last year, about $4,500 was spent on the baskets themselves and another $4,500 on watering. And so my question for the council, it will have to really scramble to put the program together, but I don't believe the downtown committee would be involved in this at this time. And maybe we look at putting a proposal out there for a turnkey operation to, plant the flowers and hang it and maintain the flowers. But at this point, I'm looking for some direction from the council. We're getting late in the season here, and
Just as a little information on that, there was a conversation in regards to this when the budget was being put together. The people that were involved in it last year had expressed that they did not want to be involved in it again this year, although they did want that project to continue. And without having someone interested in it at that time, we did not put it in the budget. Since then, I know the city administrator has had contact with an individual who has expressed an interest in doing it. And so I think what the city administrator is asking for is, does the council want to put money towards the downtown flowers and the maintenance of it? I mean, we can't just put them up and then not maintain them. I mean, if you put them up, you have to maintain them. So, and I think 9,000 was last year, you said? And do we have any historical perspective on that? Steve, I didn't talk to you about that before, but Mr. Wilkins, do we know what those have cost us in the past? I know there's been a couple different people that have done it in the past, but.
Mayor, members of the council, I wouldn't have that tonight, but we certainly could put together a report and have it on the next finance agenda, which would be Monday.
Okay. I think we need to maybe move sooner than that if people are interested. Councilmember Christensen is followed by Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to recall here our last budget meeting when we had requests for funding. I thought that $9,000 was included in the total amount that we had budgeted for, is it WD, when we're downtown design, WDD? If I recall right, that was in that total amount. Because it was so many dollars we gave them plus that, and if you added them together, maybe Mr. Elkins could look that up for us, but I believe that's how that it was parlayed into the budget. That's my recollection.
Mr. Halliday or Mr. Wilkins, do you guys have any knowledge of that? Mr. Wilkins?
Again, Mr. Mayor, not having that information tonight, we would certainly have to research it.
Councilmember Nelson.
Just a clarification, I'd hate to see us not do something. It was my understanding that in previous years, I mean, if we're going to do it, how are we going to do it so it lasts the whole summer? Because I think previous years when it was done, when the money ran out, people stopped watering it. Other communities have volunteers that do this. It's a big job, depending on the days. And so I'm just curious, if somebody's interested in doing it, what kind of dollars are we talking about? Because I think last year, part of the problem was we had committed to plants early, so we didn't have to pay a fortune for them. However, there was delays in all sorts of things, so with payment and some other things. So if this is a problem and we can't do it right, then let's just admit we can't do it and not do it. But if somebody wants to do it, what's the cost going to be to do it right?
I don't think we know that number now, do we, Mr. Cruz?
Ms. Doherty, would you have any insight? I mean, you were very involved in it, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
Bev, would you like to come forward and kind of give us the numbers, please?
Thank you. You know, Willmar Downtown Development was involved in this project from the beginning. It started out with participation and collaboration on the part of the city and a group of volunteers at Willmar Downtown Development. And then when the mayor before you took the office, he told Willmar Downtown Development that there was no need for volunteers and put it into the city budget. Well, that insulted the volunteers, as you might guess, and so they're not very interested in doing it anymore, nor do we have Don Williamson on our board anymore because his term has expired. And he was using his garbage trucks, and we were providing the volunteers, and either the city or the fire department was doing the watering. The watering is the most crucial part to keep them alive. So last year, when there was a $9,000 budget, I got a call from the mayor asking if there was any way we could get this done. It was the last week in May, and we struggled to buy every last red petunia that they had at Frank's Nursery, and they have a pretty good stock. But she kept begging me, as she had every year, please order these in February so we can plant just for you, and then we can charge you less because we'll know that it's a sale, et cetera. We had to pay retail to do that. The watering becomes a 7-day-a-week job, and that plus the gas that it takes and the fertilizer that it takes for every day makes that more than what you would call just a simple watering job. That has to all be obtained somehow. So this last year, I thought, well, you know, I'll give this a try. We ended up buying all brand-new liners. They're very expensive. We bought all the flowers at retail. We bought all of the soil and all of the fertilizer. And at $9,000, we're in the hole about another $9,000. And I know that the bid from Stacy's Nursery last year to do it, which Charlene called me and asked about the year before, was $20,000. And I think that is a very reasonable cost now that I've done this. One year we paid an out-of-town flower deliverer to provide the flowers and plant, not water. That was $13,000, and the watering wasn't done yet. So I'm just giving you the various numbers. I think a project like this requires collaboration by a lot of groups, and it requires money. And at this point, I don't see either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the numbers we're hearing is about 13 to 20,000. So we haven't gotten any numbers from any of the local nurseries yet, correct?
No.
So Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking up last year's budget, and I see we gave them $37,000 total, and I was mistaken. $5,000 was added on for the holidays parade. So it's 32 plus 5, and we gave them a total of 37, and I didn't see any flowers in here as far as their operating expenses.
That was done separate, I think, yeah.
So, I guess a couple suggestions I might make on the flowers is, it would be a whole lot easier if they're hanging ones, so you could make them up at a warehouse or something, and come and hang them up, instead of putting these pots, and you gotta have a ladder or a truck with a boom on it to get to these things. That's tough, and I can see why somebody's expenses might be 13 to 20. Just watering them things, it takes a lot of labor, and get that water up there, you gotta pump it, and, yeah, I don't know. Could be an expensive venture, but it could be done a lot less expensive.
Is there an appetite? Do we want the city administrator to look into this? I mean, I think if we want the city administrator to do it, we should tell him to come back to us with ideas and kind of take the ideas that he brings. I mean, I'm sure we've all got ideas on how it could be done, but I know you had a citizen, I believe you told me, that has contacted you and said he'd be willing to do it, correct?
Someone wanted the job of watering, yes.
Okay. Did that include the planting and stuff too? Do you know?
I don't believe it did.
Okay. So, so we maybe do have some interest if we would, at what level can we do it without having to go out to a bid?
I think we can do it with quotes. That's not an issue, and
Okay. Okay.
if the council has a desire to do it, staff can make it happen. we'll look internally at a, seasonal person that can work for us versus contracting out.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of concerns. One, if we're going to do it, we need to make sure we do it right. We don't want just some little sprig stuck up there, and because then that's worse than not having anything at all. And my other concern is timing. It's all about timing, and here we are. We're at the end of April. Those baskets probably need to be ready to go in a month. So whatever we do, we need to do quickly. And I guess my thought was if you could have some sort of thoughts put together, maybe even for the Finance Committee meeting next Monday. No later probably than the next full council meeting on the 2nd. We need to move this if we're going to do it. And we'll probably have to look to you as to whether or not, I mean, you can say you can make it happen, but we have to make it happen correctly.
I mean, why can't we make that decision tonight? I mean, if we want to do it, why can't we just say that the city administrator has a budget of X, up to X to get it done? I mean, otherwise, we're 2 weeks later, and we just heard from Bev that we've got to get it done if we're going to get it done.
You're looking at me?
Yeah.
I think, first of all, a couple of thoughts. We don't even know what the X is. We don't know, up to what? We don't know. I'd like to have some more thought put into it and come to us and say, we can do it, this is what it's going to cost, and this is where the money is going to come from. Because we don't have a line item in our budget for flowers. I think we should have.
Okay. So, Councilmember Nelson.
I'm agreeing with Councilmember Anderson, at the timing of this, if this is a year that we don't have the money and we can't get it done to the standards that perhaps it has been done at, maybe we need to take a lesson from Spicer and work for how we're going to do it next year and have a beautification committee for this city and try to work on some other things. So I'd hate to see us spend all sorts of money when we have been complaining about it, how it was done. I think we will probably learn real quickly about how lucky we were to have had it done that way, so.
Additional discussion. Councilmember Meske.
Thank you.
A little quicker this time, you see that?
Mayor Kelvin. We have an opportunity, I think, at this point, we talked about, you hear words about collaboration and partnerships that made this work in the past. We can probably build on those now, and sorry, but we could plant the seeds and see how they grow next year if they don't work the way they're supposed to.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
So I think this is an opportunity to start growing these things and fostering them. So I'd say look at this as an opportunity. If it comes in with a price tag that's too high right now, then work on those partnerships for next year.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, next is announcement of committee meeting dates. Finance.
Finance will meet Monday, April 25th at 4:45.
Public Works, Public Safety.
April 26th, Tuesday, 4:45, City Hall.
Labor.
Well, per what happened here this evening, we're meeting at a full council, April 27th, 4:45.
And Community Development.
Thursday, April 28th, I think here,
Okay, 4:45.
4:45.
Okay, sounds good. Councilmember Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In a couple of weeks, the filing period for running for Willmar City Council will begin. And in that light, I think it's the appropriate time for me to review my plans regarding that office. It's been my honor and privilege to represent the residents of the First Ward for the past 18 years, and I am proud of that service. I believe that it's time for another person to have that honor and privilege. I am therefore announcing that I will not be filing for re-election as your First Ward Council member. My reasons for the decision are simple. As I previously said, I believe it's time for some additional new blood on the council. It's been very refreshing to watch our new council members and new mayor bring forth new and innovative thoughts and ideas to the board. They're not limited by prior council discussions and decisions. So I am looking forward to having someone new replacing me that will bring forth new and different ideas. And I myself am looking forward to having more free time to come and go as Sandy and I see fit. Once again, I want to thank the First Ward residents for allowing me to serve them for the past 18 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. You'll be missed on the council. We respect your decision. Anything else for the good of the order? I believe at this point we adjourn. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know why, Robert, why were we doing it this way?
I don't know.
Because we had not enough notice, so we just adjourned.
Okay, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
We are adjourned.